Alright, welcome. So in this video I'm going to show you how to do a whole bunch of cool effects. We're going to use some new tools. One tool is made out of just poster board, and with the scissors we're going to trim the edge, and we're going to use that to create the foliage. I'll show you how that's done. Another tool is from a makeup sponge, like an absorbent pad that you would use to apply or remove makeup. But these things are great. They absorb spray paint and you can make patterns with them, and a lot of those leaf patterns there are made just by this makeup sponge, which I've cut into little pieces, and I will show you how all of that's done as we go along. So let's get started. Now the first thing that we need to do to make this painting is create the background, and since we're only using black and white, it's going to be real simple. We need a little bit of black so we can see the white. So in the areas where you want a little bit of dark, I'm kind of striping, like sweeping down. Sometimes there are stripes of clouds in the sky. I'm sweeping down from the top left-hand corner to sort of the middle right-hand part of the painting. But you can do it however you want. You can make thinner stripes, whatever. It's just enough to have enough black on there so that the white will show up. And then you can either streak the white across with your spray can, or you can use a piece of poster board, that hard edge, you can spray up against it and you can create some streaks of white. And if there's too much white, you can go back in and add black. You don't have to do this pattern, but this is a nice simple pattern. It creates a simple, nice streaky sky, and I like to fill in the top with just light so it looks like that light is just shining down. And now we've got our background and we're ready to start working on our land. So usually I use a dish scrubby, a green thing that's used to scrub your pots, and I tear off a chunk and I draw on the land with that. But you can use any tool that you want. In this case I'm using, it's a deck painting pad. In the United States they sell them under the brand name Shoreline. In Mexico the brand is Éxito, and it's got like little hairy things on it. They make a nice sort of grassy pattern. You can get these at hardware stores or department stores. Deck replacement painting pad. And I also can use just newspaper if I want to just go in there and drag that paint, or I can use my dish scrubby. Anything that can drag or tap the paint can be used to fill in where those trees go, where that land goes. And just kind of blocking out the general area in the black. And if you notice, you can sort of see in that black the hint of where the trees are, the hint of where the land starts. And I like to use those random things that happen to guide, to give me ideas. When I see something, I'm like, wow, that's cool. I didn't mean for that to happen, but that's cool. Like there's a tree trunk over to the left. I didn't really mean for it to be that way, but I can see it's kind of a big tree. And you can see things in the patterns that can help you make a nice design on the fly. Alright, so once you've got your basic black background blocked in, it's time to start adding any waterfalls that you want to add. Now to do that, you need your white paint to be thick enough so that when you apply it with all we're using is a torn piece of poster board to apply it, but when you apply it, that it shows up. If your white paint is too thin or too wet, it's not going to show up. So if you're using a brand that's thick, you're not going to have a problem. Like Rust-Oleum is really thick, Montana Water-Based is really thick, a whole bunch of them. But if you're using like Krylon, for example, or Painter's Touch 2X or something like that, it's going to be too thin, and you're going to have to let it set up a bit before you apply it with your piece of poster board, your little torn edge of poster board. Otherwise it's not going to show up, or it's going to be too transparent. I mean, that might be an effect that you want, but if you want it to really show up and you've only got thin paint, let it set up. Now my advice is, if you're using those brands, don't use those brands because they're horrible. Switch to water-based paint. It's non-toxic and it works great. The Montana water-based. But if you have them, let it set up a little bit before you apply those waterfalls. And I like to have some of the waterfalls be kind of small and dripping from high up, or rivulets that are coming out from here and there, and some of them be big. It's kind of like that. When there's water falling, it finds lots of paths to fall, so it may not just fall in this one big waterfall. There may be smaller ones here and there, so play with that. Play with different sizes and play with where the water is falling. Now that's a tool that I made just by cutting a little circle of poster board and trimming around the edge with a pair of scissors. I've cut little notches in the poster board, and you can see that if I dip it into white paint, I've got this beautiful leafy pattern that I've got because I've taken the time with my scissors to cut into that. Now, if you want to know more about this tool, I'm going to be posting more in the resources section, so you can go check out exactly how this was made. And we'll also have a video on making tools in the basic membership. But if you are accessing this months past when this was posted, check the resources section. And look at all the beautiful patterns that can be made just with this piece of poster board that I've cut with the scissors around the edge. Because of that cutting, I'm getting all of these patterns, and I can press down on them a little bit with my fingers, and I get longer stripes because I'm pressuring more of those little cuts, and so I can get where I can tap just very gently with the edge, and I get tiny little ones. Like when I made those things on the right, I was tapping just with the tiny edge, but you see there's more of a spiky pattern on the left there. That's because I'm pressing down with my fingers, and I'm getting more of the pattern in there because I'm pressuring in a different spot. So you can play with this, play with how you tap, play with how much pressure you apply, and get different kinds of patterns so that it looks like some of your foliage is one plant, some of your foliage is another. The wonderful thing is with this tool, with just a little bit of different pressure, you can get all kinds of different plants. Now, sometimes I've added a little bit too much, and I want to dark out some areas and go back in there and change them around. This is really about your sense of perspective, your sense of artistic sensibility. You may like it the way it was the first time, and that's fine. But if you do want to change something, that's fine. Make sure you have a nice black that's easily controllable. And just go in there with that black very gently, adding some shadow to maybe the edges of your bushes, and then you can go in there and create a layer on top of that, a layer on top of bushes that are sort of in front of it. So that's the way you can create some perspective. But you may like it the way it comes out the first time, which is fine. I mean, a lot of really beautiful random things happen with these techniques. Now, you want to make sure that you can get kind of different size strokes with this tool. Some strokes are going to be big and wide, and sometimes you're just going to press down with your fingers and just get a few of those little slices of your tool there. You can also add black to it. You can go in there and tap in with black if you want to add some plants that are maybe in the shadow. In nature, you'll notice that some plants are in the light, some plants are in the shadow. So if you're just using black and white, it's a really good way to study, the use of the light, adding plants with the white, adding plants with the black, and how you can create all kinds of dimensional effects by creating those layers of black and white and different kinds of plants until you like what you see. And I like to add some foliage. The water falling is going to encourage plants to grow in between where the water falls. Sometimes there's a lot of water and sometimes there's not so much. So sometimes when there's not so much, those plants will just grow, or if they're just really hardy, they'll grow right in the water where it's falling. So you can add a few in the waterfall as well. Get creative about that. If you want even more detail, get yourself a fan brush and go in there and add, very specific little layers of foliage with that. That's fine too. Black and white. If you want more detail, it'll give you a different effect. And it's the same with the fan brush. If you press down really hard, you'll get one effect. If you tap very gently, you'll get a different effect. In fact, the tool that we've created is kind of like a fan brush made out of paper. So once you've got it the way you like, we can add a little mist at the bottom of these waterfalls just with some white paint. Of course, you need a white paint that can spray very fine. And there we've got our basic design. Now we just add maybe a few details. Maybe there's a sun in the middle with a CD. Just spray through that hole with a little white and we have a beautiful sun. And let's see what else we can do. Now here's a really cool tool. This is made of a makeup sponge. If you go to a department store or just a dollar store, you're going to find these. They're used for applying makeup. Little circles, usually little circles, but they can be little rectangles too. They're very absorbent. And what I've done here is I've cut it with my scissors. And you can go to the resources section to see more about this tool. And then I'm just holding it. I've kind of figured out a way that I can hold it. Like, experiment after you cut a fringe in this thing. Experiment with how you can hold it. and you can create all kinds of leafy patterns, and then you can dip it into some paint. It absorbs a lot of paint and it'll last a long time. And you can just tap on some beautiful foliage with that. It'll just really add that spark that you need to your paintings of foliage and landscape. So I hope you've enjoyed this and that you've gotten a little taste of that new tool and got a good taste of that first tool, of that fringe of poster board, which is great. Go learn more about them in the resources section and use them in your landscape work because they make it quick and easy. Hope you've enjoyed. Ciao.